China's President Xi Jinping's recent visit to Vietnam may have been billed as a diplomatic charm offensive, but underneath the pageantry and handshakes lies a deeply strategic maneuver designed to reshape regional allegiances and exploit fractures in the global economic system. Xi's call for Vietnam to resist unilateral bullying in the name of protecting free trade, though carefully coded, is a transparent jab at the United States and one that carries disturbing implications for the stability of international relations and the sovereignty of smaller nations in Southeast Asia. Let's not forget the broader context. This is not just about diplomacy. This is a calculated, opportunistic response to the chaos emerging from Washington. The Trump administration's escalating trade war with China, marked by wildly fluctuating tariffs that now soar to 145% on most Chinese imports, has created a climate of economic confusion and diplomatic anxiety. Even longtime allies and partners of the U.S., like Vietnam, are now being forced to navigate a treacherous new landscape in which both major powers are pressing them to pick a side. Xi's message to Vietnam was wrapped in the familiar language of multilateral cooperation and respect for global trade norms. But the real subtext is far more concerning: align with us, or be left isolated in a world increasingly shaped by authoritarian influence. While he never named the United States outright, Xi's warning against unilateral bullying speaks directly to the Trump administration's unpredictable economic aggression. And let's be clear, this is no altruistic defense of international rules. China's own trade practices, intellectual property theft, and manipulation of supply chains are well documented. The notion that Beijing is suddenly a champion of the rules-based order is not only hypocritical, but deeply cynical. Trump's response, unsurprisingly, was as inflammatory as it was unproductive. His comment that Xi's meeting with Vietnamese leaders was about figuring out how to screw the United States does little to de-escalate tensions. Instead, it reinforces a narrative of American unreliability and volatility. And worse, it plays directly into Beijing's hands. With each outburst and contradictory policy shift, like the bizarre tariff exemption notice followed by Trump's denial, the U.S. loses credibility on the world stage. Vietnam, caught in the middle, now faces an impossible balancing act. It needs trade relationships with both the U.S. and China to sustain its growth, but both are increasingly weaponizing that interdependence. The threat of U.S. tariffs of up to 46% on Vietnamese goods may have been paused for now, but it remains a hanging sword over Hanoi's economic future. At the same time, cozying up to China too closely risks public backlash and undermines Vietnam's sovereignty, given the country's long and uneasy history, particularly in contested areas of the South China Sea. What we're witnessing is a dangerous unraveling of the post-Cold War consensus that free trade and globalization would foster cooperation and mutual benefit. Instead, trade is becoming a blunt geopolitical weapon. Xi is exploiting the chaos in American leadership to advance a narrative in which China is the stable, reliable power in Asia, while portraying the U.S. as irrational, hostile, and self-destructive. And disturbingly, that narrative is starting to stick in many quarters. In reality, neither power offers a truly benign path forward. Xi's charm offensive masks a regime that systematically censors dissent, cracks down on democratic movements, and engages in aggressive regional expansion. The idea that China is a benevolent alternative to the United States is a seductive illusion, especially for countries desperate for infrastructure investment or technological partnerships, like Malaysia, where Chinese firms Huawei and ZTE are helping to roll out 5G networks. This isn't simply a diplomatic tour. It's a high-stakes psychological operation to rewrite the power dynamics in Southeast Asia. Xi is filling the leadership vacuum left by American inconsistency with a more polished, but no less coercive form of influence. And Trump's erratic approach to international trade, governed more by political theatrics than strategic foresight, is helping that effort succeed. The bottom line is stark. America's global reputation is deteriorating not just because of what its rivals are doing, but because of what its own leaders are failing to do. In the absence of clear, coherent, and principled economic leadership from Washington, China is seizing the opportunity to reshape the global trade narrative in its image, one where autocracy is stable and democracy is chaotic. And that, if left unchallenged, is a vision that could fundamentally alter the balance of power for decades to come.